Hello and welcome to the Indie Incursion podcast, your weekly podcast all about indie games. We bring you a bunch of indie game news you might want to know about, and of course we talk about some indie games over on Kickstarter. This week we are going to be talking about the Nintendo Indie Showcase, a new indie game called Towers, Castle Crashers, and some of Nintendo's best-selling indie games on the Nintendo eShop. But first, I really want to know what you've been playing this week, Josh. How you doing?
That's right, I'm back, baby.
I forgot to actually introduce that you're Big Josh Boy. You're back.
Big Josh Boy in the house. I am back. It's been a while. It's been a while, man.
It's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. I've missed you so much.
I mean, yeah. You should.
You know. Oh, you.
Yeah, what have you been playing? You've been on like a cool vacation in faraway lands.
I know, dude. It was pretty nice. I went to Denmark. I got to bounce on some trampolines that were like randomly in their sidewalks. I went to Italy, ate a bunch of pasta. It's pretty dope.
I didn't know you got to go to cool places other than Denmark. I thought you just like went to Denmark.
Damn, fucking throwing shade on Denmark.
If I'm being honest, somebody had asked me where you went for like, I think I was talking to, it was on our podcast with John. He asked where you went. And I was like, I don't know. I think you went to like the Netherlands or something. I don't know. I forget.
What does it matter, man? He's just not here. That's
like
pretty much
that
what
part
it is.
of the world. If I just like took a circle, it's fine.
Dude, fuck airplanes.
That's the one takeaway. You're just like, fuck airplanes.
That is my one takeaway, is that 10-hour flights are annoying as hell. And I know there's people who go to like India from here and it's like much worse, but like, ugh.
But those people are dumb.
They're crazy. But yeah, no, but I'm back. And the good thing about a Switch is you get to bring it with you and play games when there's any downtime in your trip. So I ended up picking up the game Baba Is You. And if you haven't heard about that, it's, I think we talked a little bit about it, on one of the episodes earlier. I was like, oh, this looks cool. It's like this weird, like, you're basically this like rabbit looking character and his name is Baba. And the way the world works is you basically have a number of different levels that are puzzles. So you have to solve the puzzle, and in the most easiest of concepts, it's usually that you have to get, as Baba, to this flag that is like the winning point. Now, it's like super simple at the start, but then as you start getting into the levels, the puzzles get harder and harder, and like I'm at some of the like the end puzzles right now, and I'm still like racking my brain trying to figure out what is going on. But the basics of it is each level, the main thing is just to get to usually that flag and win. But the way it works is there's rules, and the rules are actual like floating text boxes that are on the screen. And so what that means is it'll be like Baba is you. It'll be 3 words that are connected. And because those 3 words are connected, that means that your character that you play as is Baba. So you could like move another word in front of that. So if I move like rock is you and like move Baba away, it'll turn me into a rock. Or, well, no, it'll actually make a rock that's on the map. Then I'll be able to control it. So like if there wasn't a rock on the map, I would kill myself because there's nothing for me to be.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's super weird, but it gets like super confusing because the way the level design is done is like perfect, because each of those blocks obviously takes a space on the level that you're playing. So like they put it in either weird corners so that you can't move certain rules, or they keep it out of your way, and they'll like it's just very well done and thought out as to how those rules are put on and which ones you can mess with and which ones you have to just figure out, okay, what is the developer trying to have me solve in this level? And it's really unique things where from the basics of it, you can, like, one of my favorites is, it's one of the easier levels, but I thought it was so clever, was just changing it so you can stack sentences. So I had Baba is you, and then I just stacked Baba is win, so that I didn't even have to get the flag. I just instantly won because I'm Baba and I'm also the thing that wins.
That's a really cool concept for a game.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. I was so blown away by it, and it was so fun, but it was one of those things where it's very new, so there's not a lot of guides out there. And I don't want to look either at guides because then it ruins, all the fun of like figuring that out, because the game is perfect for that, like, oh, that's what it is kind of a moment, because that's really what it is. It's a lot of going into a level, spending 20 minutes being frustrated and being like, there is no way that you could possibly do this, and then like something clicks and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it's like,
it's just dumb.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much fun, but it was one of those things where the game doesn't really give a lot of hints. Like there's no real like push. So in a lot of cases, if you can't solve a level, you just kind of like, well, I guess I'll go to a different one and just try to figure it out later. And it's very very difficult to go back and be like, okay, now I understand. Like you just have to like sit there and figure it out. And there's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot of guides out there, and it's also, it would ruin it. I wish there was some kind of like hint system, something that wasn't going to give it to you right away, but kind of like, even if it was in the title of something that you had to do, which there might be in some cases, but the levels are just very difficult, but they are so rewarding. So at the same time, like, I'm bitching about the challenging part to it, but when you complete it, you're like, you feel like such a badass because you're like, oh yeah, it took me so long, but I figured it out. Or in some cases, you feel like an idiot because you should have known it. But but it just depends. It's I'm having a lot of fun with it though.
Does it have any like narrative really, or is it just like a puzzle game?
No, it's just a puzzle game. So the way it works is you basically you'll go to different worlds, and each world has like a few levels in it. And the worlds have themes to them. Like there's one that's like very like robot based. There's one that's under the sea. There's one that's like grass and like, kind of like earth-y. But as far as like a storyline, not really. It's more of just, and you get that right away. It basically just puts you in a thing that says Baba is you and like flag is win, and like shows you that you have to get to the flag. And then each level is basically some variation of that. But there's no real story through it, which I think could have been, something interesting to it, but I don't think it takes away from it, because it's a very, like, the game is doing what it's meant to do, which is it's just a super well thought out puzzle game.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds really, really cool. I actually might check it out. The art style initially kind of tweaked me, how it just looks kind of like weird and creepy in a way to me.
Yeah, so one of the things that's interesting in it is basically it's like 2 or 3 frames, and it just kind of like wobbles everything. So it's a little annoying sometimes looking at it, but there's actually a setting in that to like change it and just make it still. So it's just 1 frame, not always wobbling around.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have to actually check it out, because Baba's You sounds really cool. Is it only on the Nintendo Switch, or is it on other platforms? I know we talked about it a little while ago.
I know it's on PC. I don't know if it's on other consoles. It might be on PS4 and Xbox. I would have to check, but to my knowledge, I know specifically there's a Steam version of it and a Switch version.
Nice. I'll probably have to pick it up on the Nintendo Switch. Seems to be, I mean, this is like the week of the Switch for indie games, dude. It's some good shit's happening this week. For me, what I've been playing is not a whole lot. I've been doing much more writing and editing different podcasts and just doing all sorts of other stuff. I played some Destiny 2, but that's mostly it. I've recently was like, you know what? I'm going to get back into Destiny, and I bought the Destiny 2 Forsaken and the annual pass, and I was like, all right, it was only $70, whatever, it's not a big deal or anything. And then less than a week later it goes on sale, and I was like, can I just punch myself in the fucking head? Yeah, I was talking to my best friend about it. I was like, it seems like every time I buy a game, a week later it goes on sale. And he's like, it's kind of funny, the inverse like happens to me. Every time you tell me to buy a game, it's on sale. And I was like, fuck you. Take your dick. I hate you.
Damn. That's rough.
Yeah. So I was like, I hate my life. But yeah, just playing some Destiny. It's really fun. I'm very excited for a lot of like the indie games coming to Switch, and just indie games coming to platforms in general. especially
I'm
consoles.
I'm a little nervous. There's just too much coming out.
There's so much. I mean, it's also kind of amazing, though, because you know what we got to talk about last week, but then, of course, I need to hit on this. We did not have an episode last week. It was because of some audio issues. I'm sorry to anybody listening to this who did not get their, fix of indie games news last week, but one thing you did miss was that there is a physical edition of Hollow Knight out, everybody.
That's it, man. You are
Yeah.
no longer the ghost.
No,
Formerly
I have
known as
now
Rawhide.
referred to myself as I cannot remember it, to be honest. Oh, I call myself like the Messiah of Hollow Nest, I think is what I call myself. I call myself the Messiah in some weird way. I can't really remember, but I have risen and I am omnipotent, so be prepared for that.
Wow.
Yeah, don't challenge me on that. Don't try to trick me, because just don't exert yourself. It's not gonna happen. So.
Don't try to trick me. I'm omnipotent. You can't trick me.
It's impossible. It's whatever. But I think it's about time we get into the news of the week. Speaking of, and by the way, you guys can pick up that sweet Hollow Knight physical copies and the collector's edition over on Fangamer. It's really cool.
I like how you said copies.
Yeah, multiple.
Multiple
it's on
copies.
several systems.
Buy them all.
I almost bought it. No, I'm not gonna say it. I almost bought both the collector's edition and the physical edition because I really wanted to have both cases. But I'm fairly certain that the collector's edition might just come with a case that's similar to the. It either is the same case or a similar case, so I'm not too worried about it.
You
It's
heard
gonna
it
be
here,
cool.
Team Cherry. Hit him up
Yeah.
and let him know so he'll spend more money.
Yeah, right. It's all freaking Fangamer and Team Cherry have to do, and I'll sadly buy their game again. Even though I'm not even joking, I spent almost $100 because I bought the collector's edition and I bought this journal that you could bundle with it, that tells you it goes really in depth into the lore of Hollow Knight. So I'm very excited about it. It's gonna be awesome.
Damn.
But
Wow.
our first news story of today is over on IGN. It is written by Beyond's own Jonathan Dornbush. I really enjoy Podcast Beyond now that Jonathan Dornbush has taken over. I didn't listen to it much beforehand, but he's a pretty great host. So this is written by Jonathan Dornbush. It is 18 games highlighted in the Switch. What am I even talking about? Highlighted in the March 20th Nintendo Switch Indie Showcase. Nintendo highlighted 18 games during its GDC 2019 NINDIES Showcase, many with confirmed or vague imminent release dates, including a few games being released today. Cuphead is coming to the Switch. Cuphead was confirmed and it was given a release date for the Nintendo Switch, which is April 18th. Overland, which we actually talked about I think
a while
it was,
back.
yeah, it was
I
a
don't
while
remember
back.
what episode it was.
Yeah, that one was just announced that it's coming to the Switch this fall, so it's not one of the ones coming out this week or anything. My Friend Pedro was announced announced as a console exclusive coming June. I'm very excited for that. My Friend Pedro looks awesome.
Silly as fuck.
Yeah, it's about a sentient banana just murdering people left and right. It's awesome.
I love how he moves in ballerina moves. I don't know, it looks so weird, especially for someone who is actually playing it and has the mechanics down already. It just flows so well.
Yeah, it's very elegant. It's
Yeah.
weird. Then we've also got Neo Cab is coming to the Switch this summer. Neo Cab looks really interesting. It's kind of like this adventure game where you're a taxi driver kind of, and you have to both balance your work and your personal life. And in your personal life, you are trying to find out what happened to, I believe what happened to your friend. She went missing. And you're trying to find out what happened to her. That one looks really cool. The Red Lantern looks awesome, but it looks like I'm going to hate my life once I play it.
Those bears are going to get you.
Yeah, it looks really cool, but the fact that they just end that trailer very abruptly with the bear just totally murking that dog, I was like, okay, you got me. I hate this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
The main character is going to be voice acted by, I want to say Ashley Birch, but I feel like that might not be her last name. She was the voice actor who did the voice for Chloe in Chloe Price in Life is Strange. She's a very good voice actor. Red Lantern looks really, really cool. And no, it is not a reference to like DC characters. It is about
Green Lantern's evil brother.
Yeah, the Red Lanterns are really cool. They're like rage based. It's really cool. But this has nothing to do with that. This is all about like this girl who's trying to like kind of, I don't know. It seems like she's trying to reinvent her life by racing in the Iditarod race, which I honestly didn't know that was a thing.
No.
I had heard people say the name before, but I didn't know that was actually its name.
Yeah, I knew that people did this kind of thing, but I've just never really heard much on the subject. So I think it would be interesting to play that out just to see, because one of the things that they did in the Nindie showcase was they had, I believe it was the game's director was on there talking about the actual game itself and like how she kind of went very very depth into the actual facts about people doing this race and like how people can kind of be consumed by it. I think it's interesting because this game is not about winning a race, it's about just finishing.
Yeah, makes sense. Apparently you can just get attacked by fucking bears midway through.
I mean,
yeah, I think finishing is definitely a thing.
You're just running through their house. They're like, get out.
That's true. Then you got Darkwood is coming in May. Darkwood has players scavenging for supplies and exploring a mysterious haunted forest setting, only to be besieged by a powerful threat each night.
Was this this was the top-down looking one, right?
I don't know.
I believe
they don't actually have like anything on it in this article.
Yeah, I don't like how they put a bunch of trailers in this and then
they just skip like 3 trailers.
Skip a few for some reason. I'm pretty sure Darkwood was the one where it's like a top-down view. It kind of reminds me of like a Hotline Miami sort of, not art style, but that type of like gameplay mechanic of being able to see up top view and just running through. But it's like a horror game where you have limited view, but because it's that top-down view, I don't know, it just doesn't look pleasing for me, I guess. I just can't see myself getting into that. And I kind of have a big thing about hating games that do the whole like conserve your light and stuff like that. Like I want to see the whole map. I hate the limited view type mechanic.
There you go. Not only I have weird issues with video games, other people do as well.
I think mine is more acceptable than your crazy pickaxe mechanic.
It looks fucking weird, dude.
Yeah,
like,
all right.
It looks weird. Katana Zero looks awesome, and it is coming to the Nintendo Switch on April 18th. Apparently, you can pre-purchase it today. It looks very, very cool. It's like this fast-paced action platformer where you play as basically like a samurai, just murking people left and right. It's awesome. Very excited to see what comes of that game.
I really like the fact that it's not only like you feel so strong in it, but you also feel so vulnerable just because everything is one hit kills. It's all enemies are one hit, but you are as well. So I think that's so cool that they did that, just because it limits that like, oh, I'm amazing feeling, just more that you have to actually learn the room, since the main mechanic is you basically go into a room each level. When you die, you'll get to do the whole thing again, like it'll rewind time. So you just learn the strategy of where they're going to attack, when they, will see you, and how to react each time. So I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. We've also got Rad by Double Fine. It seems to be... Oh, yeah, okay. Rad is set to release this summer. Players will take on a character with an ability to mutate themselves, taking on the likeness and abilities of other creatures, like a snake, who can reach out and snap at foes. This one looks really interesting. I didn't get to look at like a whole lot about it because IGN doesn't have a trailer. They just have like their 13-minute gameplay. And I was like, I'm not going to watch that.
It just looks interesting because it's basically as you're playing, you'll get, and I don't know what causes it, but you get random mutations. So one of the things is like that snake part in the trailer, the person is running around and all of a sudden they mutate and their head becomes this snake body. So now instead of having their normal like just regular weapon that they swing, they instead like their head will lunge out and snap at people. So it looks really cool because it's one of those things where this seems like it's going to just be, you know, a normal roguelike of you don't know what kind of mutation you're going to get, and depending on how like robust that mutation tree is, this could be something where it's a lot of replayability. So I'm definitely excited about it. I actually signed up. There was a, I don't know if they're still doing it now, but when it first came out, they are doing a beta, like a early access sign up for a beta for people who want to play the game before it actually releases.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's on the Bandai Namco website. It's something like Rad Beta or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I'll look it up.
Oh, it seems like anybody can get into it. That'd be really cool. That sounded really weird. That seems like I was in some way insulting you after I said it. I was like, wait, what? Apparently they have low standards.
It's a beta. Yeah, it's a beta that's open to the public. The only thing you have to do is like sign up, put your information, and then one of the ones that I thought was interesting is there's actually like a little mini essay. It's like, what's your favorite roguelike and why? And I was like, well, that's weird. But
yeah, they're like, we're going to judge you.
Yeah, exactly. And be like, if you don't pick the right one.
Yeah, they're crossing their fingers. It's published or developed by Double Fine and
yeah,
Bandai
that's
Namco.
what I was thinking about. I was like, should I look up a Double Fine one and put it? And I was like, no. You don't.
I'm not gonna lie. Then we've got
Spelunky.
Creature in the Well. Pinball meets puzzle solving and Creature in the Well set for a summer release. That one sadly has very limited information right now.
It looks really cool though.
It does? Sweet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. It's very interesting. It reminds me a lot of... I haven't played Hyper Light Drifter, but it does remind me of that style.
Then I'll have to check it out. You piqued my interest. That made me very excited.
Yeah.
Then you got Blood Roots. Blood Roots is confirmed for the Switch with a summer release. Blood Roots looks really cool. It's I really hate oversimplifying things like this, but they said it very well when they said it's like Samurai Jack meets Hotline Miami. You play as like a lumberjack who's basically just straight up killing other lumberjacks in this really weird way. Yeah, and everything is one hit, similar to how you're talking about Samurai Zero. You just go around and you just have to tactically kill all these other lumberjacks as fast as possible.
Yeah, it looks interesting. I'm not crazy about the art style of it, to be honest, but I do like the fact that you can basically use anything in the game and pick it up and use that as a weapon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a bunch of like... So if
you could. I said that you could pick up crates and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about anything, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of just like random things on the ground and random like objects, because it doesn't look like he has a main like weapon other than, I guess, just his... I don't know. I
would assume he has an axe. He's like a lumberjack.
Well, I don't know. I'm watching some of the gameplay, and it looks like he's just picking burning barrels up. He's punching people. He's throwing random posts at them. I don't know. It looks very like... It's got a very fast pace, but as he's running through, I'm seeing like a lot of objects that have like some kind of white highlight around them. So I assume that's going to be basically anything that has that he'll be able to pick up and throw at the enemy.
Nice. Next one, you got Pine. Pine, it doesn't seem like there's a lot about it. There's not a lot we know about it right now. Pine is set to release on August 2019, and it features an expansive open world players can explore. From the few screenshots that IGN has right now, it looks really cool. It looks like it has this like really cool like the character designs are really interesting. There's like these fox people and like alligator people and all sorts of stuff. It reminds me a lot of like Dauntless's character designs, which I was super sad to hear that Dauntless was delayed to the summer. I was very sad. I was very excited for it, and they just crushed my life. Oh, I think I have a new reason to die, I guess.
Nah, get out of here.
You're like, shut up. It's not. We're done.
No, that's not as good.
And then there's Super Crate Box. Vlambeer's Shoot 'em Up is finally making its way to the Switch in April with new multiplayer options. I don't even know what that is. I have absolutely zero idea what that is.
Yeah, I don't know much about Super Crate Box, so this sounds like a skip. And IGN didn't do us any favors because there's nothing in there other than that.
There's literally nothing. Very cool that Nuclear Throne is finally coming to the Nintendo Switch. I actually really like Nuclear Throne. Top-down shooter roguelike Nuclear Throne is actually available for the Nintendo Switch today. That's really sweet. Have you ever played Nuclear Throne?
I actually haven't. So
really,
it's something that I always and it looks like the type of game that I definitely would have, but I just never end up picking it up.
Yeah, I bought it and like played it on my PS Vita. It's like a cross-buy title, so I just like every time I leave the house to go do something and I'd have to wait like my real memories with it are like taking my car to get an oil change, and I just sit there playing Nuclear Throne the whole time. I could never get very far because, once again, I'm really bad at video games, but it is so fun. It basically, Earth is like this nuclear wasteland, and you play as like these mutated different like creatures. It's super cool. I really like it. And then you get to choose different mutations after each level to make yourself a little bit stronger. But of course, if you die, everything resets and you have to do it over again, like standard roguelikes.
It reminds me a lot of Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah, it's very similar to Enter the Gungeon, but with like much different art style, and you can't like kick over tables or anything.
Oh yeah, that's the thing you really need. Yeah, it's basically Enter the Gungeon, but a different art style, and there's the whole mutation aspect to it rather than well, I don't know. It does have a good amount of guns that I'm seeing, but definitely not as much as Enter the Gungeon.
There's like a bunch of different guns. There's a wide variety of weapons that you can actually pick up in Nuclear Throne. And then we've got Vlambeer Arcade. Vlambeer is expanding its release prowess with Vlambeer Arcade, a portal meant to be updated with new experiences over time. The first game included will be Ultra Bugs, which IGN saw, albeit in a different name, Paxies, whatever. Yeah, that doesn't help me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because this is a weird, like, basically the game that you buy is kind of like not really a commitment, but it's like an agreement of like, hey, we're making this game and then you're also going to get more games like this, or I don't know if it has to be like this, but basically they're just doing a collection but only giving you one game at a time. Almost like, some kind of games of service, but in that actual game itself.
That's cool though. That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know really what type of games are going to continue from that or what it'll be like, but it'll be interesting to see that collection grow.
Then we've got Swimsanity is going to come to the Nintendo Switch this summer. Blastomaster Zero 2 was announced, and it is available for download today. Stranger Things 3, the game, will be available, blah, blah, blah. The game is confirmed with so they're both going to release on July 4th. Then we've got one of the most interesting bits of this is Cadence of Hyrule. It's like a crossover between The Legend of Zelda and Crypt of the Necrodancer. This looks really interesting. Did I ever play Crypt of the Necrodancer?
Yeah.
I played some of it. I really enjoyed it, and I love, I love the feel of the game. I'm just really not good at it. I'm not good at rhythm games.
See, that's the thing is like I feel like I should have picked it up, and I've always looked at it. I used to be really big into like DDR and ITG, and not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty damn good. but I've always wanted to get it because I got rid of it now, but a few years back I had like one of those metal pads that to like actually play on that would hook up to the computer. Cool. So I could have played it on that, but I ended up getting rid of it when I moved a while back.
Oh, that sucks. Well, Crypt of the Necrodancer is very, very cool, and it seems like a lot of like its initial style is actually coming over and blending with like Legend of Zelda lore, and just kind of the world of Legend of Zelda. It looks really awesome, and it looks like you can actually play as Link and Zelda. So there will be, I'm assuming, all three playable characters. You can play as Cadence, Link, and Zelda. It looks really cool. I'll probably end up picking this one up. I do not believe that this one has an actual release date.
No, it just says spring 2019.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I definitely am interested in it though. I mean, one, just because all of the different like Zelda music is going to be awesome. I don't know much about Crypt of the Necrodancer and how it plays out. I've seen it before in like the games done quick runs, which seemed interesting, but when a pro is playing it, it's like you don't really learn too much as far as like someone who knows nothing about the game. But it looked very interesting, and I think I would have a lot of fun with it. I just think one of the big things that like a lot of people are talking about right now is the fact that, you know, it's very strange that Nintendo is not really giving away, but allowing the use of their IP from these, you know, these third parties. You know, we've seen it a lot with like Ubisoft doing it from like the Rabbids games, but like this is even a smaller, just an independent developer who's now basically has that in their hands.
Yeah, they don't exactly have like a whole lot of like money backing them, or like as other people say, they don't have a whole lot of clout or whatever people say. So yeah, it is really weird to see an independent studio get like, I'm definitely not going to say free reign of Nintendo's IP, but just a crossover in general is crazy.
I'm sure there's someone from the Nintendo side who's saying like, hey, you can't do XYZ at all just because this is our IP. So like, I'm sure there's certain liberties they are not available to take, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I also imagine the development team's like, that's fucking cool, dude. We get to make a Legend of Zelda game.
I know. Yeah, not a lot of people could say that, so...
Yeah, right?
They're doing it.
I definitely won't say that this sets any sort of precedent, though, because I don't think that this means that Nintendo's just going to allow, like, anybody to mess with the Legend of Zelda franchise or anything like that. I think this is more of an exception versus the rule.
I mean, and I don't know much about, you know, the game or what's changing about it, but it seems like if anything was done with Nintendo, it would be more like this, especially from like an independent developer standpoint. It's more of like, this is kind of like, and I don't mean anything negative about this, but this is almost like just throwing a skin on it, to be honest. Like, I know there's a lot more work to that because there's the actual music, there's the enemies, there's the artwork. But what I mean is like the core mechanic to the game doesn't seem like there's been a lot of changes from what I can tell. And I obviously haven't seen the game and I haven't played it, but I feel like with a Nintendo style, this is something that if they were going to do it with another developer, it would have to be something like this, where it's a very niche game. And they're like, oh yeah, if you threw a skin of Mario or Samus or Donkey Kong over that, like that would be cool. But I don't think they're going to just be like, hey, like any random independent developer just to be like, I have this cool idea, let me use Mario. They're going to be like, haha, no.
Speaking of cool ideas, moving on to our next story, it is we're staying on IGN. This written by Tom Marks, and it is Towers. Okay, so Towers got 3 like super cool exclusive high-res screenshots, and it got this awesome trailer. So it seems like a group of 6 developers in just 1 year have kind of made this concept for a video game that's this like open world multiplayer game. Okay, he compares it to Breath of the Wild's art style. I am not going to agree with that. I think it looks better, but...
I mean, it kind of looks like it, though. Especially, like, the enemies kind of look like something you would see. Like that weird little mask thing above their face.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, I agree. I don't know. I really don't like oversimplification, even though sometimes it totally makes sense. But
I mean, it's just for the reference. I'm not gonna lie. I looked at the pictures first before I saw the article, like I was telling you.
Yeah.
And I instantly thought, oh, this kind of reminds me of Breath of the Wild. And then I read the article and was like, yep, that's exactly what I thought.
Towers looks awesome. It
No, it
looks
does.
really, really cool. I like that it seems like more. I don't know. It seems like your characters are more like in tune with the environment versus like they aren't exactly just trying to kill all this different wildlife. The only things that they're trying to like hunt out and kill are of course predators to defend themselves, but also these like creepy characters with the like these really seemingly malevolent characters with they're just tall and lanky and made out of slime.
Yeah, I was like, this game was a weird mix of emotions when watching it, because I was like, oh, it's like a farming simulator. Oh, it's like it just kept changing genres in like of the game in here, because one of the things I was watching all the way through was I was like, this looks really like beautiful, and it looks like something that would be interesting. And I was like, but where's the action? And then like right as I was thinking that, the malevolent character came out of nowhere, and then you start fighting them and you're fighting the predators, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's more to that. Like
I mean, like, yeah, we had kind of like we had very similar reactions to the trailer, because I was like watching it. I mean, I'm kind of on the opposite side though. I was like, I actually enjoyed that there wasn't like they didn't have really any gameplay, or I mean, they didn't have any like combat shown.
Yeah, it reminded me of like a No Man's Sky without like the combat part that they started adding now, of like it just has more of like an exploration feel to it. It was just a very open, very beautiful worlds. Like they showed the actual world growing and expanding, and like the actual flowers blooming and changing throughout time, which I wonder how big of a gap like real time versus game time that is. And so I was just like, oh, this game, it looks like it's just something to do, and it'll be, you know, interesting to kind of create your own little environment. But then the combat came, and I was like, oh shit, this is much more. Like there's a ton of stuff in here.
Yeah, this game looks really, really cool. I'm actually very excited about it. The only thing I'm gonna hold back my excitement, especially because of the like 6 developers. It took them a year, kind of a thing.
That's what kind of blows my mind, because if it was only 6 developers, like this is very like well done for that short amount of time. And it's one of those things where it's like, how much of this is the CGI just like graphics cut versus actual gameplay?
Yeah, how much of this is a vertical slice versus what you're actually going to be able to experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about that too, but ultimately I think this looks really cool. I would not expect it to come anytime soon, especially like 6 people making this kind of like this ambitious of a game, because it is definitely ambitious. I wouldn't expect it to come anytime soon. I would assume it to come out in like probably 2021, if not even further, depending on if they get like funding. I would assume that they start some sort of funding process, especially after this. Like IGN's reporting on it. It's talking about how like in here it says it like wowed a bunch of people, and it's really turning heads, which I think is good. I think the developers went and commented, and they said, "Help spread the world to make this game, spread the word to make this." Yeah, spread the world. Spread the word to make this game a reality. Which I guess we're doing.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't know. It looks really good. I'm sure that there's gonna be someone out there who will pick this up and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you money." And if not, there's always, you know, the crowdfunding scene. But
I kind of hope they just crowdfund it, to be honest. I don't know why. I just enjoy that more. It's kind of like honest in a sense, but also people have crowdfunded and just taken the money. So
yeah, I mean,
not to say that like
side,
not to say publishers are dishonest in any way. It's just kind of yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I don't know. I'm sure regardless of the path they choose, they'll make this a reality. I mean, I can't imagine people not liking this, or at least being interested to give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, people like Ark Survival Evolved, so it's bound to like this game. Now, I actually like Ark. I think Ark is very cool. I have issues with its DLC, but that's about it. But time to move on to our next story. This one's a big one. It is over on Polygon, or at least
would you say it's a behemoth of a story?
I would say it's a behemoth of a story. Thanks.
But
This written by Ryan Gilliam, I think is the way you say his name. It's Castle Crashers Remastered, coming to Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. I'm actually really excited about this. I've never played Castle Crashers. And this, it'll be a big deal for me, to be honest. I've wanted to play Castle Crashers for years, but never had a chance to. It's always been kind of like, it's on PC and it's on Xbox. It was on 360, and I believe you could play it on Xbox One, but I never, I don't know. There's just all three things that I wasn't going to play it on. And when I had a 360, I was more like, when I had a 360, I was like, 14 to 16, and I was basically just trying to catch up on games I had never played before. So I was playing like Dragon Age, Mass Effect. I was picking up all these, like, I mean, at the time, either newer or slightly older games versus trying to delve into the like indie games or the like arcade games that were pretty much made the Xbox 360 a big console.
Castle Crashers was so good. Dude, I can't believe you've never played it. It's like upsetting.
Well, now I'll play it.
So upsetting. Castle Crashers was amazing. It's one of the very, very rare games that I have ever bought twice for like multiple consoles. Yeah, I don't do that, which I might end up doing that for Cuphead though for Switch, but I normally will never do that just because I'm very stingy with my money. But Castle Crashers was so great. That was right in the time of like the Xbox Live Arcade games and like everything. It was the perfect couch co-op with buddies to play. And although I think like they were saying in this, and I read the original, like the blog post that came from Behemoth, they were saying, why do this now? And apparently there's a ton of people who are like asking for it, which I'm sure there are because everyone wants everything on the Switch now. But like, I will say this is definitely not going to be something I'm going to pick up just because it's way too late and I already have it on 2 devices. But
I'll pick it up.
But you'll pick it up, and I hope you do because it'll fund their Game 5 quotes.
Yeah, just Game 5 that they announced.
Game 5 that they drop, whatever that is. So I'm definitely excited for that. I hope it's not like pit people because I just didn't like that genre. But anything like Castle Crashers or Battle Block Theater, I'd be down for.
I've never played Battle Block Theater either.
Oh, that's pretty good too, man. It's a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, like the storytelling in Behemoth games are one of my favorite things, and Battle Block Theater has such a good story. It's like it's so funny. You just gotta play it, man.
Yeah, it seems like Behemoth's their games have like this certain kind of like weird humor.
Yeah,
like I've seen snips of Castle Crashers. There's like the bear just like dumping out in the woods.
Yeah. It's pretty great. One of my favorite parts for Castle Crashers is there's a level where you're literally running across with like deers, like you're on top of deers, and one of them is just shitting, like he's like propelling himself because he's shitting.
Yeah, that's weird. So it seems like the Nintendo Switch version is going to utilize the HD Rumble, Switch Online, which I don't know if that's like bragging in any way. It's not a good online service at this point. And it's going to support 4-player local Joy-Con use. So that's pretty nice. It's got that couch co-op.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty
sweet.
It's a
great game for it.
And the PlayStation 4 version will... I love how they act like this is a big one. The PlayStation 4 version will display the player's character color in the DualShock 4's light bar. Sweet.
I wonder how that's going to work, because other than the 4 characters, they then start to get into like a lot of different like classes that all have different colors. So I wonder if they're going to do it for all of them or only the original 4.
I would assume all of them. I mean, the light bar can do a lot of different stuff. I will say something. How I really like the DualShock 4. I think it's got a lot of stuff that's kind of annoying about it, like how the light bar drains your battery like no other. That's really annoying. But the fact that the like controller has a speaker built into it is really cool. So in games like The Division, when you're playing, the like there's the user interface that speaks to you and tells you like certain things about the world and stuff like that. That audio does not come through your TV. It actually comes through your controller.
I like when that's done right though, because there's some games like Kingdom Hearts did that, and it was like in really weird places. Yeah, but it was like, I hate when games do that, but it's like a strange kind of like, the game adds no value, like that part adds no value to the game. It would be like you'd get like some stars on one of those dishes you cooked, and it would like make a little noise, like when you crack an egg, like I think it would make that like crack egg sound on the controller. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like it would do it at the most random times and in like the most obscure ways that never added any value to it.
All right, then. It seems like Behemoth has kind of some interesting thoughts on sequels. They said that when they were talking about a sequel to Castle Crashers, it would have to be vastly improved over the original rather than more of the same, according to the creator. And he said anything... Another thing to consider is that there would be no Castle Crashers 2 if we started out by making sequels, said Paladin. You'd have Alien Hominid 2 instead of Castle Crashers 1, or alternatively, there'd be no Battle Block Theater if we made Castle Crashers 2. That's kind of an interesting way to think about it.
But not.
Because I don't know, maybe he always had... it's definitely a weird way to explain it, and it kind of sucks that... I don't know that he thinks about that in that way, I guess. It sucks, but I understand it. But I mean, that means, like, he has actually thought about making sequels for these games. Like, he's thought about it and enjoyed... In my mind, he's thought about it and enjoyed it enough that it would be like, yeah, I will make this game and it'll completely take me away from this other concept, which ends up being a massive hit, like Battle Block Theater. So, Pit People's kind of interesting. It says it released into early access over 2 years ago, and now they've like revealed revealed stuff on Game 5. You have a game in early access, and you're gonna reveal another. That's of interesting.
Pit People actually recently is. I'm pretty sure it's no longer in early access, but it was in early access for quite some time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In the article, it just says...
Let me look that up really quick, because I remember hearing something about Pit People going out of early access a while ago. But I
don't think it's in early access on Steam anymore. You just buy it. It doesn't say it's in early access.
Yeah, no, because March 2, 2018 was its release date. And yeah, because the actual early access date was like in 2017. So no, yeah, it's no longer early access. So I don't know why the article pushed for that rather than just saying that they recently released Pit People. But
yeah, 2 years ago they put it in early access. All right, that's cool.
Yeah, so I don't know why that was highlighted, but Pit People looks really cool as well. Just I really just like the art style of Behemoth and the actual story to it. I never played Pit People because it's not really the genre of game that I'm generally for.
You don't want those turn-based RPGs or whatever?
I want those cards, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very true. You're all about them card games.
Give me Castle Crashers too.
Well, apparently they're not going to.
Well, they suck.
Our next story is Overrun Twinfinit, and this will be our last big dive into a news story for this week. And it is Nintendo shares the 10 best-selling indie games on the Nintendo Switch eShop. A lot of this article I'm not going to go over necessarily because it's kind of just filler. I just want to get to the actual stuff. So for 2019, the 10 bestsellers are Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, fucking yes. Overcooked 2.
What's that?
Overcooked 2, Undertale, Dead Cells, Enter the Gungeon, which I'm surprised to see Enter the Gungeon on here.
I'm not. And the reason...
10.
I'm not. The reason why is Enter the Gungeon when the Switch... It was about a year ago. So I don't know why I started with when the Switch, but when I got the Switch, I noticed that there was a lot of sales, like reoccurring sales on Enter the Gungeon. So I'm not surprised at all. I think it's just a lot of people are picking it up. I'd be more interested to see, like, is that best selling as in physical, like I bought the game, or is that in the actual amount that you're spending on it? Because
I
I'd
would
like to
assume
see.
it's the amount of copies purchased, not the amount of money spent on it.
That's what I'm assuming, and I feel like if that was taken into consideration, it wouldn't be on the top. But you could also argue that higher priced games are going to be well off rather than lower. But
Yeah.
I've seen Enter the Gungeon on the sale for eShop a lot, so I think that's just one of the main reasons.
Plus, it's a really good game. It's a lot of fun.
That is true too. It is a really good game, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons as opposed to others.
Yeah, and some of the others totally make sense. Graceful Explosion Machine, Celeste being one of them. Yeah, of course Celeste is going to be one of them. Golf Story and Overcooked. I have Golf Story physically. I really want to get into it. I just have a lot of games.
The true struggle.
Yeah, right? The true struggle of any collector is never having enough time to play the things you currently own.
Sad day. I've wanted to pick up Golf Story, but it's one of those that I probably never will.
You can pick it up physically at Best Buy.
I would.
Well, I mean, you can pick it up physically, like in a lot of different places.
Yeah, specifically Best Buy. Like, whoa, we're already selling out. We're only 20 so episodes in.
At Best Buy, they have a specific cover art through limited run.
This fucking guy.
So yeah, I was going to buy it at Best Buy, but I didn't like that cover art, so I just ended up buying the limited run games version, which is a different cover art, and I could buy it at my like local game store, so that was pretty cool. I think it's a little weird that this is like, hey, these are the best-selling games for 2019, and then it's like March 2018. These are the best-selling games. So
Enter the Gungeon's still there.
It is. And apparently this list is in no particular order. I really wish that was, put above.
Yeah.
Just to kind of contextualize the list. But we've got SteamWorld Dig 2, Stardew Valley, of course. Kamiko, Celeste, makes sense. Fast RMX, Golf Story, Enter the Gungeon, Overcooked, NBA Playgrounds. I did not know that was an indie game. And Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, which Shovel Knight is very good. I like me some Shovel Knight. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised basically at any of these games. They definitely all deserve it. I've wanted to check out the Graceful Explosion Machine for a long time, but I just haven't had a chance to. And it totally makes sense that Undertale is in the like top 10 bestsellers on the Nintendo's eShop. It's like,
It's got such a strong following.
Yeah, it's like it has this cult following. Yeah, once it came to the Nintendo Switch, it's like, hey, guess what? You've got like 10,000 people, or I mean, definitely more than that, like 100,000 people that are just going to buy it again. They already own it, but they're going to buy it again.
Yeah, well, the dedicated fans got to keep them going.
Right, that is very true. So I think it's about time that we slip into a nice little section of the podcast. Yeah, we're slipping into.
It's very sensual.
Yeah. It's just like a nice warm bath or a puddle of mud or something.
It's good to be back.
Is News Cram.
Cram.
I tried to get John to do that, and it's so uncomfortable. I was like, yeah, you could do it if you want, and then.
Did he specifically ask though? Was he like, yo,
No.
do I have to do this cram shit?
No, okay, so what happened was, and this is like, I'm fairly certain I didn't delete this from the podcast. It is in the recording. I was like, yeah, Josh does this thing where he says cram after I say this. I was like, he says like cram. And I was like, you could do it if you want. And he's like, okay. So I was like, this is News Cram. And then he's just like, pause. And I was like,
That dead air.
yeah, he paused for a second, and I was like, okay, no, all right. So I just kind of went through Newscraft, and he's like, wait, am I gonna do it? And I was like, what? You've been waiting this whole time? Yeah, it's like it already went past. I don't understand.
Wow. Yeah, I have to go back and listen to them. I really have had no time since the 3 weeks. I really haven't had much internet, dude. Well, I guess it's because I've been in like the other countries, and one of the things for like T-Mobile is they give you 2G, like they cut you, so like everything over there is just like shit internet for me.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I don't even think I get 2G where I live, so. So for News Cram, what we do is we have a bunch of indie games news stories that we didn't necessarily have a whole lot to say about today, or we just had to cut a few for time. So these you can check out at the sites that I will list, of course, and you can check out the links in the description down below, depending on where you're listening to this. But we've got No Man's Sky Beyond announced with the reveal of No Man's Sky Online. That's over on IGN. Shovel Knight developer Yacht Club Games to reveal a new published game. That over on IGN. Oh, dude, I'm so excited. It looks fucking cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wish I knew more. There's just nothing other than that image.
The only thing that came out with this was them saying, hey, we've got a new game. And then they put out like a GIF of this really cool image of this like samurai-esque, like it seems like kind of just a warrior standing with his or her sword drawn, like staring into this dystopian like hellscape of a city, like a post-apocalyptic city with this crazy like storm. It looks really cool.
Do you think they're gonna do something similar with like, because like Shovel Knight was, you know, it's very like old school video game. Do you think they're gonna have that same kind of style? Maybe they'll use like something similar to Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, I was thinking. I honestly, the first like the little GIF I saw, I was like, that kind of looks like The Messenger.
Yeah, dude. So that's one of the things I wanted to say is like maybe they use Ninja Gaiden, but I was like, would they really do that right after The Messenger? But I don't know.
Speaking of, didn't get to talk about it next week or last week. Oh, dude, I'm so stoked for The Messenger coming to PS4. I'm definitely gonna play it now. And
dude, you have to.
Physical copies.
Such a fun game. Don't listen to Errol. He is dumb and just can't play that chase level. He
says so nice things about the game. Other than that, he's like, I love the game, but that chase level sucks.
I know. And every
you're
time
like, he's stupid.
Every time I just pick on him, I'm like, just get good. Just get good. So you might have a problem with it.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice of you. So then we've got the Return of Oprand Dinn wins the grand prize at Independent Games Festival Awards. That is over on Polygon. On Game Informer, this story is really cool. Florence started development as a 3D Rubik's Cube of human heads. That's fucking weird.
I know, dude. I read that title and like I had to go back a second time and I was like, wait, what? I was like, what are they trying to do?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Every time, like, so I listen to this podcast called Humans Who Make Games, where, what is his name? It's Adam something. The guy from Adam Ruins Everything.
Conover.
Yes, Adam Conover. Yeah,
dude, I love
interviews.
That's a good podcast.
It's a very good podcast. And something like a through line of each of the developers talking about how they developed a game. They're just like, oh yeah, I thought this one concept was cool, so I built an entire game around it. Like that's pretty much how Spelunky was created. That's how Braid was created. Like all these indie games. I played a little bit of it, not too much.
Go back and play more.
I'm fucking terrible at video games, Josh.
Dude, shut the fuck up and play Spelunky. I'll hold your hands.
Spelunky 2 looks really cool.
I know. I'm super stoked.
The developer of Spelunky, his episode of that podcast is really good. It's like a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, back to Florence though. But you could see in, like I was saying a little bit earlier, before we started recording, it's interesting that that's their direction, and then they went to that more very basic approach with like having the puzzle communication boxes, like the speech bubbles that you had to put together. I think
they said that like they initially did like the 3D, but they thought it was boring, so that's why they switched to 2D and made it more of like a narrative driven thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I mean those puzzle boxes are not like riveting.
They're not hard to accomplish, so it kind of makes sense that they were boring.
But I think I think it makes sense that they pushed more towards the narrative side of it. And I think if they were doing the 3D Rubik's Cube human head thing, I mean, I don't know, because obviously I have no frame of reference since I haven't played that, but I can only imagine being like, this is fucking weird, and just putting it down.
For our next story over on News Cram, it is farming sim. My time at Portia coming to consoles in April. That is over on Game Informer. The only thing I wanted to say about this is, in the article, it immediately this game is in the same vein as Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon, and it kind of lists off these couple farming simulators, and I'm like, I think people know what farming sims are. Is this kind of just a way to like get more clicks on this article? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. Far Loan Sales gets some company with console release. That is over on Game Informer. Also on Game Informer, Axiom Verge producer suing Badland Publishing for $200,000. Also on Game Informer. A lot of these are on Game Informer. Turn-based RPG Battle Chasers Night War is heading to mobile. Dwarf Fortress coming to Steam with actual graphics. Both of those over on Game Informer. Wizard of Legends Sky Palace update adds tons of free content. That is on Twinfinit. Cyberpunk game Tales of the Neon Sea gets a release date and a new trailer is over on Twinfinit. And our last story for News Cram, it is on Game Informer, is NES-inspired Alwa's Awakening is coming to PlayStation 4 this month.
It's quite cramming.
That's a lot. It seeing it out like this, it makes sense that we have to have this section because I want to make sure that people hear that it's like, hey, there are stories about other indie games. There's just we
just don't want this podcast to be 5 hours.
We're already an hour in, and I understand we talk about some dumb shit sometimes, but we're an hour in, and there's no way we would have covered any of that.
Yeah.
We would get maybe to the Shovel Knight one and be like, yeah, so this has been 3 hours.
All right, we're going to cut it here, guys.
So I'm glad we have News Cram, so make sure to check out these articles at their sites. Of course, like I said, the links are in the description. But now it is time for God Bless the Crowd. This is where Josh goes into different crowdfunding sites, finds some cool stuff to talk about, and we talk about it. Yeah, it's pretty...
Yeah, I think I found a good one this time.
It is very interesting. I'm if I lived in Brooklyn, I would think this is so much cooler, to be honest. This is Wonderville Arcade. It is a new bar, and it basically celebrates indie games that... It's kind of weird. They're making this bar where they make arcade cabinets out of really cool indie games. Mm-hmm. Is what I get from their Kickstarter page. Just a little bit of information for you guys. They have $50,321 currently pledged from 576 backers. Their goal is 70,000, and they still have 11 days to go. I hope this gets backed. This is a very, very cool. It's really cool. It's just a cool opportunity, and I really hope it happens. I think it's kind of special because it's bringing back arcades, but it's not bringing back arcades with all the old arcade games that you've seen a million times over. It's not oh cool, I get to play Street Fighter in the arcade. Oh cool, I get to play Killer Instinct or whatever. It's new indie games that you get to play that they made entirely unique arcade cabinets for. It's just really awesome.
It's pretty dope because there's a bunch of random barcades that I've gone to before, and it's usually the same thing. I always just search for where that Simpsons arcade cabinet is, and then I just play that. What the fuck? You never played the Simpsons
I've heard about it before, but I've never played it.
Oh my god. It's basically the old Ninja Turtles 4-person beat 'em up games, but it's with the Simpsons. It's so good.
But it's with the Simpsons because that's totally normal.
Dude, it's I forget why, but they steal Maggie, and then everyone Homer, Bart, Lisa, and Marge have to go fight a bunch of bad guys who are trying to steal her for some reason. I forget what the reason was.
Yeah, it's obviously has this in-depth story.
It did, man. You gotta play it. You gotta go to that barcade. But anyway, so with this, I think it is really dope because there's all this new content that's going to be in there, and it's going to be these own custom made cabinets, and I really enjoy this as an interesting thing to do. I think barcades are super cool and definitely underrated, at least from a mainstream perspective. and I think this would be an interesting addition to Brooklyn. It is a little upsetting that obviously the only way you can experience this is by going to Brooklyn. But one of the cool things that makes it like okay to still back this project is, you know, maybe you'll travel there one day in your life and you'll be like, oh, I backed this, and you'll be like, this is so cool. But if not, you can pay the $20 pledge, which is the Wonder Bundle, and basically you'll get a list of 10 plus new games by a number of different independent developers. And those would be basically those games, like a number of the games that would be inside the arcade cabinets. You'll get them and be able to play them, you know, at your own leisure. So even if you're not someone who has the opportunity to be at this Brooklyn bar at all times, you can still back it. And then, you know, if you're ever in the area, you'll get to experience it. But if not, you still get those games. So I think it's a pretty win-win.
And also, these aren't indie developers like, oh, I made a game, so I'm an indie developer. It's not like I made a shitty iPhone game, so I'm an independent developer, kind of like an easy out. These are actually like known indie developers who made like actual worthwhile games to play. It at least that's what it seems like. The creator of Killer Queen is making one of those games. I think that's really cool. Something that I thought was also really cool that I will literally like, I'll never be able to do something like this, I'm assuming, in my life. But you could pay $10,000 and get a custom-made arcade cabinet. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and it's like, you could do that now. You can get like a custom-built arcade cabinet with a ROM in it to where you could play like any arcade game you want. But the fact that this is like a custom-made arcade cabinet to play indie games on, that's really cool. That's awesome to me.
Yeah. It's a little pricey, but the t-shirt designs and the enamel pins that they have are really cool looking too.
Also, what the fuck is enamel? I've always thought of enamel as like the stuff on your teeth. I was born without enamel, and then these are enamel pins. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I don't fucking know.
But they're very cool pins. They've like people like they're different arcade cabinet pins, and like two little girls playing like a Slam City arcade cabinet. And yeah, like you said, the t-shirt designs are really, really interesting and like abstract. They're really weird.
Yeah, I really like the yellow one.
Yeah, the yellow one that's like these weird ass designs of like just kind of squishy wet people.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a very gross looking, like, you remember like Ren and Stimpy back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of that art style when they would go into like the really creepy episodes.
Yeah, this seems like a really special idea. I'm like crossing my fingers that this actually becomes a thing, that they get the recognition they deserve and people do this. Because I mean, this will not only kind of like help them, but it's also going to help these like relatively unknown indie developers, because people are going to go here because it's kind of like, it's a weird place to go. People go to barcades all the time because it's just something cool to do. And then imagine going to a barcade and you're playing this amazing arcade game that's like, hey, yeah, this is made by one person in their garage. And it's never, basically it's like, it's a unique game. Now you can, it's a person who you'd never known before, especially because we've talked about it several times on the podcast before. Like their discoverability is a huge issue. Like there's no way you're ever going to be able to play, let alone find all the amazing indie games that are currently on platforms. And this is kind of a way to like, it's a way to help with that. You go to this barcade that like just has amazing indie games in arcades that you never would have played. And that's really cool. I don't know. It's weird enough to where I feel like it's definitely going to shed some light on indie games that nobody would have seen before. Is kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally right behind you with that. I hope it works. They got 11 days left to go, and they got about 20,000, about a little bit less. But they've already made 50K, so I mean, they're getting there.
Yeah, I really wish I understood how Kickstarter worked.
The inner workings of it. Yeah, it was interesting. I did this is going to be a shameless plug, but I did an interview with, oh man, I wish I could remember his name. It was like Jel Van Doorn, I think. And he's this developer it's a solo developer working on a project called Viola. The game looks super interesting. It's like a hybrid platformer RPG, but I asked him as a question because he's working on it, and I was like, so, as a single developer, like I'm sure you need funding. Are you considering any type of like crowdfunding or like a Kickstarter? And his response was very interesting because, normally we have a lot of high praise for Kickstarter as it does a lot of good things, but his was very negative. Not really like negative of like, oh, fuck Kickstarter, but it was more of like, the Kickstarter scene is great for people who already are popular, but for a new person just trying to start up, their own brand or image, it's very difficult and will often be a negative thing.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense because there's a lot on Kickstarter. You know what? I've had an issue with Kickstarter ever since we started to do this fucking segment of the podcast. And I'm going to tell you right now, I love this segment, but Kickstarter annoys the shit out of me, especially because they have the section that's like games, that's supposed to be just games, but it doesn't exclude video game magazines or board games. Yeah. And the fact that like I'm just coming in here and I'm trying to look at just video games. Why do you not have a search tool to just look for video games?
I mean, they're not specifically set for it. Like Kickstarter has so much other stuff. That's why there's like other things like Fig, which is basically dedicated to video games, but it doesn't do as much like actual projects that get backed. Well, not backed, but like started. I don't remember exactly how Fig works with that, but it's more of a selective process as to who can start that.
Yeah, I remember like we've done God Bless the Crowd for like 22 episodes now, and I think we've only had like 2 different things on Fig or something like that.
Yeah, it's because Fig, there's a good amount of stuff on Fig, but it's usually very like I said, it's very selective. So they'll do it in a way where there'll just be like a whole month between like a game that comes out. And like in a lot of them, like if I'm looking through the catalog right now, most of them are like view the game or view the campaign, but there's not a lot that are actually like available for you to actually invest in. Like the only one that it looks like you can still invest in right now is Soundfall, which is interesting because that should have already been done, but I guess you can still continue investing afterwards as long as it was funded. They do have one that's coming soon, but I'll just wait until that's actually there to talk about it for one of the episodes.
Kickstarter does the like how you can back stuff after the Kickstarter has actually succeeded, but it's like to get special rewards, so you can like basically just buy t-shirts and posters and stuff. I've seen.
Yeah. Usually it's more of them just pushing to get more money because they need extra funding. For a lot of cases, it's usually people who they this is kind of a bad way to frame it, but sucker them into spending more money to get the higher tiers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just saying that Kickstarter should have like, if there's a games tab, just have a like, just a way to filter it to just video games. Because I hate the fact that I go on there, and I wouldn't hate it that much if it was just board games. But the fact that it's like magazines, what the fuck? And it's not even magazines specifically about video games. It's just magazines.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't understand how this has anything to do with games. You have a section for like literature. Why is this not in that section? I don't get it.
It's not the same.
Apparently it's not the same. Yeah, I don't get it. Kickstarter has some issues, but a lot of my favorite games have come out of Kickstarter, so like just a few things that they could change I think would be like big quality of life stuff. But yeah, this Viola game looks really cool. Actually, it has like its own Kickstarter page and everything right now. It looks really interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, and the interview was actually really good. I really like the guy. He was definitely, a lot of his responses made me very like much more higher anticipating the game to come out.
Well, then I will keep an eye on it as well, and I'll have to check out your article. This would normally be where I ask you like a probing question, But I just kind of wanted to know how your vacation was. Did you do anything fun other than bounce on trampolines and shit? I just kind of wanted to ease you back into me mocking you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, it was really nice. The first week, like I said, I ended up going to Denmark to Copenhagen because my wife, she works as an event planner and she got to go there. So we had always talked about going there as like a honeymoon thing not to Denmark, but to Italy specifically. So I found a ticket that was pretty cheap, and I was like, well, we're never going to find a better time to do this. So I ended up just going with her. And then after she was done, we went down to Italy. So with Copenhagen, we were only there for like a few days, but Italy, we ended up going to Venice. Then we ended up taking a train to Florence and then a train to Rome and then coming back. So we did a lot of like the touristy stuff of going to, the different churches, to the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain. But like it was all very, very interesting. I think my favorite thing that we did was I think it was probably one of the best ones that we could have done was we got a tour, which was a wine tour. When we were in Italy, in Florence, and it was a tour of a part of Tuscany where they explained, like, I'm not really a big wine drinker, but they explained kind of the whole history of wine in Italy in this one specific area known as Chianti. And it was very interesting just to learn about the wine, to understand the different types that they had there and how like the process works for it. And it was also great just because for a lot of the trip, we're going to these touristy areas and we don't really have much as far as transportation other than just like buses or things like that. So this was a guy who was we were going in like a car and actually going out into the mountainside, and like the view was just so nice on top of like the winery areas. So it was definitely an experience that was enjoyable for sure.
That sounds murdery. He's like, I'm gonna take you in my car to this countryside.
Well, I mean, we were with two other people, but I guess he could murder more than.
That's true. You never know. Maybe this guy's like just a really good murderer, I guess.
I mean, well, I survived, so I'd like to think either I was good at avoiding it or he's just a bad murderer.
Hopefully he's just a bad murderer. Did you know that I think it's in Italy. There's this guy who like he owns this land and he declared it sovereign, and it's just like his own land and he's like the king of it. It's fucking weird. It's like this weird news story that I heard a long time ago.
I have not heard anything about that. I did not stumble upon his land though, so
that'd be so cool. I wonder if he has like I imagine he has some weird ass laws or something.
I mean,
he's like, I fucking kill you. Get out of here.
Something like that. Yeah, I stayed clear of that area, so I don't know much about that. But the rest of it was great. Oh man, I had this gnocchi, and it's called.
What is gnocchi?
It's basically like a potato dish.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of it at like Olive Garden, but I didn't know what it actually meant.
That's dog shit in comparison.
It's okay. I mean, it's dog shit anyway. I hate Olive Garden. It sucks.
Well, this stuff was like amazing. It was called Angels and Demons, and it had like pieces of pork cheek and like this spicy sauce and edible flowers and this stracciatella cheese, which I always thought stracciatella was.
That sounds made up.
Chocolate chip, which is usually what they call it for ice cream, but it's also apparently a cheese. So I was like really confused. I was like, are there chocolate chips in here? But it's just a cheese. But oh man, the cheese was so good. God, it was such a good dish.
Have you ever noticed there are some words that just sound super made up? Like stracciatella or solenoid. They both just sound like words that it's like, that sounds made up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dumb word. Like, I don't know why it is what it is. But
well, I was thinking about that earlier, and then I like stopped myself and I was like, to be fair, every word is a made up word.
I mean,
like that's literally how language works. So
yeah, which is, I mean, it's pretty crazy, but yeah, I don't know. Some words are definitely sillier than others.
Fuck, solenoid, so stupid. But that's about it for this episode of the Indie Games Podcast, the Indie Incursion Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys do like this, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast service. We are currently on Google Music, Spotify, and on YouTube, also Podbean. Okay, so I realized
we gotta figure out how to get on iTunes.
So yeah, I've joked about me being lazy, and that's why it's not on iTunes. No, over this weekend, because I started a second podcast that I'm doing just on the side with my friends, I realized over the weekend why I don't have this podcast on iTunes. And it's like Apple's Podcast Connect is like fucked up to where every time I try to log in, it just sends me in a loop of logging in. So it's like, okay, cool, log in. And I'm like, okay, I log in. And then it's like, okay, what do you want to upload? It's like videos, apps. And then there's literally one for podcasts. And I was like, okay, podcasts. And I click on podcasts and it's like, it refreshes and it's like, okay, log in. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I log in and it brings me back to the same screen and it's like, choose it. And so I'm not even joking, I went through it like 5 times. I just kept doing it. And then I tried to contact like Apple customer support to like fix this issue. Yeah, I tried to like fix the issue. And I like go to call them because I was like, it took me like 5 minutes. And I was like, fuck, I guess I'll just have to call these people because I can't just chat with them online. So I give them my phone number because they make you give them your phone number. And then like the page refreshes and it's like, sorry, we can't help you right now. Come back later. And I was like, fuck you. I'm done with this. This is annoying.
That's so funny. Yeah, because I was talking with a buddy just last weekend. And I was telling him that, you know, I started doing this podcast and he's like, oh, that's so cool. He's like, I want to hear it. Like, is it on iTunes? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, that's like the one place we don't have it. And I was
Stitcher, because Stitcher asked for my address and I think that's weird.
Oh, no, that's strange. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to do that.
But so there you go, Tom. iTunes is a bitch and you're not getting it.
Yeah, I don't understand. I'll have to figure it out because I really need to get on iTunes, but yeah, it's really pissing me off. But yeah, this is the end of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. You guys can follow me and chat with me outside the show at Hyde Legion on Twitter, and you can follow and chat with Josh at _Josh90. I didn't forget 3 weeks. I didn't say it once, and I didn't forget. Yeah,
big brain Vaughn. You know what I'm saying?
You should be proud of me. That's about it. Oh, thanks. That's so nice of you. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Bye, guys.